Thank you for having me here. Again, my name is Dr. Elliot Lynn. We're going to go over the effective cyber security awareness and making cyber awareness meaningful, not just a routine exercise. And as we get through the slides, I'll certainly explain in detail what we mean by that. I'm sorry, there's an incredible echo. Let me just see if I can get into the. This. Okay. I'm sorry, but if there's anything that's you can't hear and or see, please let me know via the chat. I can't seem to hear without an echo going through. So sorry a bit for the delay, but we'll continue on here. So basically, what is cyber awareness? Everybody has an idea of what cyber awareness is in some way, shape, or form. But one of the actual definitions is the level of awareness or understanding users have about cybersecurity best practices, cyber threats, and to their networks or organizations every day. Now, while this is a decent definition, it's not realistic in the sense that employees necessarily have a great awareness or aware of the threats or issues that organizations may face keeping their data assets secure. There's actually three types of cyber classification or awareness, if you will. Physical, cloud, and network. Some may overlap, and there's others depending on the industry. But again, most average users aren't going to really have an idea about physical cybersecurity over cloud, over network, over some of the others. Some may feel, is this really my job to be cyber aware or worry about cyber threats to an organization, especially those that are not in IT or cyber related fields? So when they don't have that tie or have that great understanding about IT more than what a novice may have, in many cases, they certainly are not going to look to be on the hunt for cyber threats, if you will. If you think about yourself outside of a professional capacity and in a workplace, are you cyber aware? Do you consider yourself cyber aware? What are some of the things that you have in the back of your mind when you go into your office on a Monday morning, especially here in the United States, and you get there without your coffee, and you may be having a bad morning, the last thing that you may think about is, are you cyber aware? What is this threat? How can I keep my data secure? It's just not realistic. And we continue to take a unrealistic approach and assumption towards people's view in an organization in terms of cyber awareness. So that brings me to the current state of what we see cyber awareness as. It's turned into a fancy catchphrase, if you will. Cyber awareness, be cyber aware. Cybersecurity is a shared responsibility. That's one of the catchphrases you hear quite a bit in organizations, but it does not necessarily translate to that user that doesn't necessarily have any tie or interest in doing anything other than what they're there to do. They're not, maybe they have minimal interactions with the computer. Maybe they don't care if they their password is something basic and simple, because there's nothing of real value to that individual there. So that shared responsibility certainly may vary. Another common thing that we hear is we all have a role in keeping the workplace safe. Again, there is personal responsibility that falls here, and in many cases, you're not going to find someone being vigilant to say, hey, lock your screen before you walk away, or hey, you know, I can see over your shoulder and see exactly what you're working on. You probably shouldn't be doing that. That's just not a realistic approach that most people take in the workplace these days. What are some things that remind us to be cyber aware? In most cases, a sign or a training, or we have some mention of an attack, and even less so for those that aren't impacted at all. If there's not a system that you are having a problem accessing or getting to because there's some kind of cyber attack, you're really not going to think very much about it. It's not anything that's incredibly pressing in the average user's day. There's a horrible assumption of cyber awareness made by organizations. They just assume that, and in many cases, you go through some of these trainings, and in some cases they're annual. Some may do them a little more frequently, depending on the industry. But a lot of times there is an assumption that you've gone through a video training or something of that nature, and now you're cyber aware. Now you have all the tools that you need to tackle all of these cyber threats, or at least be able to identify most of them, and continue forward in keeping everything safe for your organization. Again, it's just not a very realistic approach. It is a bad assumption in most cases, however, but it's enough to satisfy most insurance companies that have to pay out in the event of a cyber attack. They want to make sure that your employees are aware, and then there's a criteria or measurement of what's deemed aware, or a good campaign towards awareness. Most individuals aren't set up to be cyber aware. Anything that's a bit of an inconvenience, if you will, to access things that we want to access, even outside of our organizations. If we go to our favorite social media site and they say, we're now putting in, two-factor authentication. We want to make sure that you are who you are. Most people will opt out to do so, just so they can get to whatever they want to get to quicker. So that's not a good cyber aware approach, but it's one that in most cases, our arms almost have to be twisted into doing something to make us a little more safe. If you ask an end user today in your organization, are you prepared for a cyber attack? What would you do if you were just told we are under a cyber attack? A common response would be, I don't know, we turn off the computers and go home. We wait for IT to figure it out. 9 times out of 10, the correct answer isn't going to be, I'm going to pick up my phone right away and contact the help desk and let them know that I believe we're under a cyber attack. It's just not one of the things, even at the very basic level, that an end user is prepared to respond to and or for, and may not even know that something is happening, despite it being covered in some of those annual or semi-annual training. So again, cyber awareness, a very nice buzzword, but not necessarily something that's put into practice by an average user at an organization that may not have any stocks or hold into what we would deem as enterprise data assets that need to be protected. And this is important. And so many cyber awareness campaigns, or making your end users more aware, if you will, of the threats that are out there. Um, you got to look at, why should they even care? Does it really impact my day to day? If I can access my systems, does it really matter to me that I get an email and I click on it and it doesn't appear that anything happens with the link? Whew, I got lucky. Um, what impacts do you have if you have no sensitive data? So there is, let's just say, the mail carrier basically, in an organization, delivers mail to a variety of offices or even sorts them out, but they all have access to a common computer to check their email. There's a profile that they can all, once they log in, that takes shape. They have their own slice, if you will, of that computer. But in it, uh, they don't really do anything but maybe check what's on Yahoo, if that's permitted. Look, maybe get a peek at their social media if that's allowed. But they do have access to all the email addresses that are there in the organization because they're part of the global address list. So could that information prove valuable? Absolutely. To somebody that wants to do a social engineering attack, to gather some information, to gather something as routine and basic as just simple email addresses, and then go to work to really get some really good targets. But do the end users really care or think that they have access to anything that would deem or be deemed valuable? In many cases, not so much. Um, all end users share the same risk, in the sense that there is some type of attack or social engineering attack or information gathering attack, or maybe even just something to that's initiated by basic keystrokes that will allow a bad actor or a threat that much more closer to successfully impacting your organization. One of the things that you hear commonly is, I don't keep any of my personal information on my work computer, so I don't care if they get a hold of my email. It doesn't make a big difference to me. Or um, it really is just Word documents that I'm saving, and nobody really cares about those things, but it's saved on a network drive. Now you have um, allowed somebody in, or possibly at least a peek in, to where some of these data assets are being kept. So it's really one of those things that almost anything you do that requires technology or some level of computing, you should be cyber aware, and you should have a care that there can be a significant impact. And this is really hard to convey to somebody that's really not tech savvy, or in a position that the computer is just that. It's a tool to get my job done. Um, it really doesn't have anything personal to do with me, other than I do my job well enough or exceptionally, and hopefully everything just works properly as I do so. And it really does, and I don't want to miss this very important point. Um, why should they worry about and or take on anything new other than what you're paying them to do? A lot of end users do not feel the responsibility or the need to protect data assets outside of their own. So there's a plethora of techniques. There's so many things used today to meet these basic requirements to make employees deem or see or feel that they're cyber aware. And there are quarterly, semi-annual, or even annual cybersecurity awareness trainings. What is the problem with annual anything? It's once a year. It does not really capture much of anything, and 9 times out of 10, somebody's going to forget that information just as quickly as they get it. If they get it semi-annually, they're just forgetting it twice a year. It's something that some people dread to do, and even though you'll hear often, oh, it'll only take you 40 minutes. Okay, I'll go through and I'll take the 40 minutes, or I'll take the hour. And some really go through painstaking efforts to try to make this interactive and informative, capture your attention. And just the same, why does this really matter to me? You say the same thing every year, or every 6 months, or every 3 months. And at the same time, it really doesn't change or make any difference to that end user. So why continue to drill the message that isn't really effective? But this is one of the most popular training methods that is out there today. It's the most widely used. It's one of the most widely accepted forms of showing compliance, or at least an attempt for cyber awareness for an organization. Some organizations go a bit further. They'll do simulated phishing attacks of other attacks to catch and correct these bad behaviors. So imagine you're having one of the worst days that you can possibly have. Nothing's working correctly. You're having this particular issue. You get an email from human resources, and it seems to be important. You open it up, you click on something about not being compliant in your cyber awareness training, and maybe a half an hour later, or an hour later, or maybe the next week, you get an email saying, hey, you clicked on this and we caught you doing it, and shame on you for doing so. You could have caused an attack, you could have caused a breach, you could have caused this, and this. And no matter how you present that, I've rarely seen the individual that gets this correction say, oh, well, thank you so much for that information. I had no idea. And I'll be more on the lookout for this going forward. It just doesn't really seem to be an effective approach that is lasting. That's more of a correction as opposed to an irritant to someone. This again, saying I caught you doing something you shouldn't be doing and you should have been paying attention, has never really been the most effective means of correction, especially for something that you really need somebody to have a shared interest in. Cyber Awareness Month. Some organizations adopt this. They have small campaigns. They put out flyers. 9 times out of 10, if they don't put out anything that somebody can take back to their desk as an artifact, a giveaway, something that may, tech-wise, that may seem pretty cool. Maybe you need a new mouse pad, so you'll grab one during Cyber Month if they put them out there for free. That may have cool messages on those pads, or on a wristlet, or maybe a stress ball that you can keep at your desk, that you almost never look at, whatever the message is on there about Cyber Awareness Month. The activities that you can do during Cyber Awareness Month do not seem like they would be very much fun or entertaining for anybody that does not have an IT role, or really have a strong sense of commitment to being cyber aware, or showing their dedication to cyber awareness in an organization. Cyber awareness workshops and/or guest speakers. Those are probably the most poorly attended workshops and guest speakers that show up next to uh, maybe some other social clubs after work that some people do not have a strong desire to be a part of and or join. But there are these workshops that some people put together. They're during work activities, sometimes even after work, optional activities. Sometimes people are forced, maybe during a lunch hour. Brown bag lunch is a common term that we use here in the US, that you get information or what should be valuable information during your lunchtime about cyber awareness and security. You'll see signs. I see display banners in elevators, common spaces. Again, if you go into a common space, perhaps the kitchen or buy a copier, these cyber awareness posters or things of that nature that are there just almost are like background noise. I don't see many people taking a look or jotting down a number, if there is, to the help desk in the event that you see something or know something what may be deemed some kind of cyber attack. Again, it's very difficult to get the effectiveness of some of these techniques that are used today, but these are the most common. There hasn't been a, I want to say, revolutionary approach to tackling cyber awareness in organizations today, at least not as of yet. So what are some of the things that can be done? What are some of the things that proven effective? How do you institute this lasting change so everybody has a strong sense of cyber awareness in your organization and almost want to be? If you think about things that you can invest and show your commitment to cyber awareness, most organizations don't. So instead of saying, keep your passwords, don't keep your passwords in order and your machines locked, make sure people aren't looking over your shoulder. How about privacy screens for all the monitors? How about this person right next to you cannot see anything that's on your screen, and someone actually has to walk up behind you to actually see what you're doing? Now you're aware. Now it's built in that there's no reason in the world someone should be standing over your shoulder as you work. So automatically you're going to turn around and see what that's all about. But now there's a small investment that an organization can make to say, hey, we're really serious about this. And it's going to be, now you're going to be mindful of who's approaching you or who's trying to look at your screen, because only you should be the one that sees it. Same thing for the mobile devices. In a lot of cases, when organizations supply a mobile device, they supply just that device. They do not, in some cases, if you're lucky, you'll get a case. In a lot of cases, you'll find others purchasing their own case that they're more comfortable with for the phone that they're provided with. But again, why isn't a screen protector to protect what anybody could see on your work device part of that kit that almost always goes out? Now you're becoming cyber aware. You're becoming cyber minded almost by accident. So you see some of these screens being used on personal devices. You see the purchase of these things a lot more by individuals than by organizations. Why? Because individuals want to protect their data. They want to keep their things that maybe on their phone or on their computer private and close from somebody taking a look. That's a very low-hanging fruit that we can put into place right away. And it's a lesson that continues to be taught almost by default. You're looking at your screen, you're looking at your phone, you go to show somebody something on your phone, and they say, oh, I can't see that. Oh yeah, I have to show it to you this way because I have this privacy screen on it. And as elementary as that may sound, now you're aware of the same privacy that's provided on that company issued mobile device as you take care for your own devices. Now you're becoming, if you will, cyber aware in the things that you do without having to be some kind of tech person or in a technology related field. Common courtesy and societal norms play a big role in securing and keeping everything secure. So if Mary walks through a door, there's a very good chance she'll hold that door open if she hears someone coming behind her to walk in as well. And so when that happens, that key card isn't being used. There's familiarity. Maybe Mary sees this person on this floor all the time, but they do not know that they just got terminated an hour ago. So you have to put controls in place that gets rid of that familiarity or common courtesy that goes along with just being a human being in society, in the workplace, people that you spend a great deal of your time with and around. You're not just going to close the door on them in most cases and say, well, use your card. That's the rule here. It just almost does not work like that. So what controls can you put in place to eliminate that? And that is, again, a substantial investment by an organization. So are you going to have guards at certain doors? Probably not, because guards become familiar with people, and after a while somebody can pat on their pockets and say, oh, I forgot my badge, can you please let me in? And in some cases that's exactly what they do. But if there's a technology control in place that says that the way this door opens is just as it closes, and it's going to do that one person at a time, there's a man trap in place. Yes, so if that's there, you're less reliant on this other person to maybe let this person in. But they're also, now you get to drill that thing is who should be here, who shouldn't be here. This has nothing to do with anything other than the culture of this organization, keeping everybody safe. We're making sure that everybody that should be here is here, and we can account for them. We can make sure they're doing the things that they're supposed to do while they're here, because we're instituting a culture of awareness all the way around. Data assets are a critical component here, right? So if you have access to a building, if you have access to a computer, even a locked one, you have some kind of access, and you can pose as a bad actor in your organization. You want to create an environment of shared stakes, common goals that directly tie to cyber awareness. So if you're in a woodworking or a machine shop, maybe somewhere where they manufacture things with heavy machinery, you'll see signs that say, please put your glasses on, this is for your safety. Almost everybody is going to grab those glasses and put them on, especially if they're not familiar with that machine shop. Same thing should happen when you're dealing with cyber awareness. What do you do here? How do you do or create things that's more than just a sign? You'll see things in machine shops that say, 100 days since our last incident. And that goes for everybody that's on that machine shop floor. They all have a shared shared interest and stake in not having any incidents take place on that machine shop floor. everybody has a shared responsibility to be safe, and they want others to be safe as well, because it probably could cost someone their life or a limb or something of that nature by not being safe. So we have to do the same thing with cyber awareness. How do you do that? How do you change this culture that it's not dreaded every time that they have to take this annual training that's lumped in with all the other annual training? So you have a cyber training, your sexual harassment training, your employee handbook review and acknowledgement, and all of these other things that turn into routine, mundane exercises that you just rush to get through. But imagine having an organization that has something as simple as, it's been 200 days since our last cyber breach or our last cyber incident. It's been X amount of days, and we haven't had anyone accept or respond to the phishing campaign that we put out to try to stumble all the users. We have 100%, 100% success rate in everybody catching that. Put those successes out there. Know that there's a shared interest and a shared stake for everybody on these things, but in a positive and more than annual way. It has to become a part of the everyday culture of the organization that you're in. Training should be provided, but it's got to be impactful. It has to make sense and has to tie in the least of the least of the least vested to want to be able to be in a cyber aware environment for everyone. That training really does need to be tailored in some cases by department. This department has to understand that, sure, you're in the mailroom. However, there's UPS, there's FedEx, there's all of these tracking things that go on. There's a great deal of information that goes on here. What are we doing to make sure that every package that we get is intended for that right person? Do we have a mechanism or a way to know to flag some of these things that look a little fishy, that may not be any kind of terrorist type of threat, but could be anything, just to get the access of who is or how do we get to the CFO in this organization? Do they have an executive assistant? As an executive assistant is going to open that package or open that correspondence and reach out to us and ask us, what is this dinner about? Or what is this honor being bestowed upon this person all about? And before you know it, they were the way in for that particular thing to take place. It really is something that training has to be done in a manner that it's not an annual torturous exercise lumped in with all the rest of the annual torturous exercises that take place. Tips and reminders. It could be something as small as when you go to log on to your machine, maybe splashing a banner, 94 days, cyber incident free. And there's probably a good chance when that goes from whatever number it does back down to 2 days cyber incident free, somebody's going to say, hey, what happened? What went on there? Here's something that now it's conversational. It's not necessarily torturous to do. It's a conversational piece to find out, what happened? I thought we were doing so good. And now we're back down to 2. Again, it gets the conversation going. It keeps the awareness there on a regular basis, on a daily basis. It becomes a part of the culture and not just a series of things that are done because it's Cyber Month or things that are done because we need this insurance to bind our policy. So this is a requirement. You have to do it. And you know what? If you don't do it, we're going to do more than just not give you another 2 weeks to do it, or another 4 weeks to do it, or another 6 weeks to do it. it really is something that um, everybody has to deem valuable or have some value to it in order for it really to be meaningful. So things that I've seen or at least propose that I think may work out a little bit. Incentives, acknowledgments, continual one team emphasis, signs that display progress of incident-free time periods. You know, maybe it's by department. Maybe you do it by department and then you have one for the entire organization that yields something. Something that's not monetary. And I have a note down at the bottom. Monetary rewards are poor motivators, especially for those that would rather that cup of coffee or maybe that monetary reward seems so far away from getting that it's not really an incentive at all. Nobody really even cares. Things like 30 to 59 minutes early dismissal. Now, this is very difficult, especially in the public sector. But this is something that some organizations find that works really well for them. So they can go every week, and at the end of the week, they may not have any cyber incidents, and that 30 to 59 minutes early that those employees get to leave, they save in training. They save in the annual training that they really have to spend that money on, but it's something now that gets everyone vested. And maybe they can't take advantage of it that week or another week or whatever, but maybe it's that one time that they actually can. But think about that happening for several weeks or several months, and then they can't, because now there's been a compromise. We're back at square one. And before we get back to these kind of incentives, we have to do these other things. We have to have these incident-free periods for X amount of time. Now, guess what? We're starting to get off or be able to use that 30 to 59 minute early without penalty. That, I think, yields way more value than a simple annual exercise. Quarterly events, cheap snacks, not very expensive snacks, but quarterly events that acknowledge the hard work of everybody to keep the data assets secure. It could be something as small as a fraction of the budget, if you will, for some of these vendors that you pay for, and some of these creations that you pay for, or even services to provide these annual trainings. You do your annual trainings, you do your quarterly events with things that also turns into a social exercise. And you know what? A social exercise, any interaction that is not forced between people, always spur conversation. So these very small events, and yeah, maybe during work time, during lunch periods at work, and even if it's really short, even if it's nothing but an extra snack or something like that for somebody to take advantage of, because we're doing that good on these cyber campaigns. An annual event. Annual events certainly should not be simple trainings, but it should be celebrating the successes that you've had over that period of time. Your milestones, your incident-free periods, notable cyber-related accomplishments. Maybe somebody really did stop an attack, and it could have been a serious one. And I'm not talking about the IT staff, but these are everyday users that maybe saw something, flagged it, sent it on, and guess what? Yeah, that really was a part of a serious attack that we were able to avoid. So yeah, you can do those annual trainings, but there should be something more around that than the same thing that you get anywhere that you take a cyber training. Very important to note. Again, money is a terrible motivator. Nobody cares about your $3 coupon. to take on all of this extra responsibility. But again, if it's part of a social exercise, if it's part of a cultural thing that is not just a routine annual or semi-annual thing, you're going to find that you have a lot more vested interest and a lot more users that decide to embrace this culture of cyber awareness. And I think it's going to be something that is going to have to be done by large organizations before the smaller organizations, which make up the bulk of the workplace, to adopt it. So again, things that you can think of that aren't necessarily monetary, that you can do, or people that enjoy in your office environment, that you can tie into some of these cyber things. It would be awesome if you can suggest it and do that. So with that, oh, sorry. I want to open it up for any questions, thoughts, concerns that I can answer.
Yes, I assume we don't have any questions here offline and nothing on Zoom or Google. But yeah, I would like to just ask like to quickly elaborate on the thing like cyber awareness and this relationship with the like ultimate concept of cybersecurity. And also, can you sort of differentiate people's cyber awareness for their personal lives and in workplaces? Because I feel like that's related to your idea of shared responsibility. Because people might feel like their private life should be protected, but like at workplaces, it's more about like public life. Just there's like no sense or like no motivation for taking extra responsibility on this.
And I don't know why I have such a horrible echo, but I really do. And yeah, no, I don't think there's anything else we can get there. So with that, I'll at least wrap up. Second here. My email information is here. Feel free. If there's any email or any questions you have or concerns or anything that I can clarify and or assist with, I'm more than happy to share my thoughts and ideas on this. I'll leave the chat open for a little while if there's anybody that wants to type anything in the chat. Otherwise, and I do not have Zoom just opened once. So I'm going to end this slideshow. Yeah, and I'm on a laptop here, so it definitely wouldn't be open. It wouldn't be open twice. And no other machine here. So I'm at a loss. And I think that is all I see. And I'm going to thank everyone for their time. Again, my email information is on the presentation, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my presentation today.